The council chambers are having some renovation work done on them. So we will take the first item on the agenda here, and that would be to review the agenda, actually. And is there any discussion to amend it, or are you ready to approve it?
If there's no additions, I would certainly make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
I'll second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. The next item would be the September 11, 2017 minutes. And again, is there a need to amend them, or if not, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes. I'll second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's carried. You have the September 2017 Department Activity Report in front of you, and I thought there were a couple of things just to note here, that the youth flag football had a very strong participation this year with 128 for 2 sessions, and I thought it was interesting, and I'm not sure how long archery has been offered, but the youth archery program had 33 participants in it. And also noted here was that the summer programs, there was about 89 participant increase from 16 to 17. And one other item I noted was that the new Zamboni ice resurfacer has arrived at the Civic Center, which makes it a 100% combustion-free environment, which I understand Director Schmitz is a very desirable feature.
Yes, it's a wonderful attribute to not have to do air quality testing and to not have carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide emissions in the building.
Okay. Are there anybody else have any comments or questions about the activity report? Okay, then we'll file the report. Director Schmitz, could you give us a recap of the City Council meeting relative to Park and Rec?
Certainly, thank you, Vice Chair Sledadal and members. As usual, there were 2 City Council meetings since our last commission meeting. September 19th, the City Council declared unnecessary items as surplus for the department, and they were sold at the garage sale at the Civic Center this past month. They also reauthorized land negotiations with the Farmers Co-op of Hanska and Klassen Plumbing for a potential Minnesota River Trail segment. They also set the 2018 preliminary budget, accepted donations, and they also moved forward with Milford Heights improvements that affect Fender Park. And we have an action item on the agenda related to that. The October 3rd City Council meeting saw them authorizing wood materials for the siding and window project, replacement and repair project at Kiesling House, and authorized moving forward with Park and Recreation Department funds. Those are the items that City Council has taken up over the past month.
Are there any questions for Director Schmitz?
Can I step into here? Or are we, I'm
Mr.
not sure how you guys plan on doing this.
Mr. Hesse, is this regarded to Riverside Park?
Right.
Okay,
the trail.
right, okay, we do have that on the
Okay.
trail,
Okay.
or the mowing issue?
Well, that and that bike trailer is supposed to be what
Okay,
Vince is talking about.
okay, should we put that, Director Schmitz, into that action, or that item below?
Well, he was
As
talking
part of
about
that?
trails too.
Or is this part of what you would want to address now?
I think that the Riverside Park item is in the old business number 7, and that might be an appropriate time to discuss those items.
Okay, And then if you wish to address that, we'll certainly put some time aside for you. Is it Mr. Hesse?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Hasi.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, then with that, before we get to the Riverside mowing area, next item is to review the status of Renew local optional sales tax. And since Chair Fryer isn't here, Director Schmitz, would you mind doing that?
Certainly, Vice Chair Sledadal and Commissioners. The only update we have is that the City Council and City Leadership had a work session a few weeks ago. It was on Tuesday, September 19. They brought in financial advisor and some bond counsel to inform the City Council on some of the aspects, elements, and options. It wasn't finalized at that work session. There's some more information that the City Council is looking for, and so they sent staff and the consultants back to dig up some more information, bring that back to the City Council, and I would anticipate by the end of the year, if not sooner, the council will have kind of all the information they need to make a decision on when they may want to move forward with the projects. So nothing new or earth-shattering at this point. We're continuing to collect sales tax, pay off debt, and put the excess revenue in the Civic Center repair account and the Community Center repair account. So no action has been taken yet. City Council is continuing to gather information with which to make a decision.
Okay, so thank you, Director Schmitz. Then let's move on to the next item, item number 7, and that's the Riverside Park lower area mowing. And I'd like to ask you, Director Schmitz, if you take us through the relevant portion, and then when we get to a discussion phase, we'll ask Mr. Hazy if he would join us at the podium up here. So, Director Schmitz.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Sledadal and Commissioners. There are 3 resident citizens, adult citizens in the community that have come to me to voice displeasure in the new mowing pattern that you authorized at your June 12th meeting. As you recall, this topic was presented to you on June 12th to change the mowing pattern and reduce the mowing pattern in lower Riverside Park. And some of the reasons then remain as they do now, in that it saves time and money to mow less acres in the department. We've got many acres to mow on a weekly basis during the growing season. So it does reduce time and expense. Also, it's this year, it's been underwater, it seems like, about half of the summer. Presently, again, Lower Riverside Park is entirely underwater. And so not only is it underwater at times, but when water does recede back into the river, it takes quite a while to dry out. So our equipment can actually get in there to mow. Before the equipment can go in there, we need to clean it up. You know, there's driftwood and sometimes logs and sometimes snags, and we need to go in there physically on foot to pick up and move materials. And then another element is that it's very hard on the equipment. You know, it's a difficult. It's not like mowing a baseball field or a softball field or a football field. It's because of the frequent flooding. The turf is difficult to mow, and it does put a lot of extra stress on the equipment. I'd like to also point out a few more elements in the action form, including the fact that Commissioner and Ward 1 City Councilor Dave Christian has only received one phone call, and that one phone call was related to not allowing trees to grow up in this area. And the department does not plan to allow trees to grow up. What we're doing is when it does dry out, we mow and maintain a strip along the top of the riverbank so that you could walk along the top of the riverbank, and 2 or 3 paths going from the upper east side of the park down towards the riverbank. So there is access, so to speak, for pedestrians and park users to traverse through the area. It also provides a little more natural area for flora and fauna, for vegetation and for animals to flourish in a little bit more of a natural area as opposed to a mowed grass area. I have received a few other comments. Park and Rec Commissioner Terry Baumgart, who's not here today, and his wife Mary have both sent me in information that they like the new mowing pattern and that they're requesting you leave it as is, as opposed to trying to mow the entire area. Let's see here, as I mentioned, this is, I think, presently the 4th time the river has come up this year. 3rd or 4th time, I know that. Let's see if there's anything else. But it is, coming back to you for reconsideration because of these 3 resident citizens who would like you to reconsider it. And I've presented you those 3 options in the top of the action form. You can change the pattern and direct the department to go back to mowing everything when it dries out, if it dries out. Or B, you could recommend the department mow more than we are now, but not all of it. Or thirdly, you could recommend that the department not alter its present pattern down there, which we're mowing the top of the riverbank in a few strips from east to west, but we're leaving a sizable portion unmowed. So those are your 3 options for consideration this meeting. And as you mentioned, I do know that there's a resident wishing to speak on this topic, Mr. Mike Hasse.
Okay, Mr. Hasse, would you go to the podium and please give your name and your address, if you would.
Michael Hasse, I live at 1229 South Front Street here in New Ulm. And I grew up in that park down there when I was a kid. They never had a problem cutting grass, and they had a lot smaller mowers then than they do now. I don't believe it looks ugly down there. It's nothing but a mosquito patch. It's just a place for trash to come in now. And they had all the time in the world to cut that grass this year when it was dry. And there's no reason they can't cut it because it looks ugly. And I think in time it's going to come back to haunt the city because it's going to grow up to be nothing but a big weed patch. And as long as they're cutting trails through there now, they might as well cut the whole thing. Why even cut the trails if they're not, it takes just as much time to go around and cut different trails than it does to cut the whole thing. I mean, to me it's dumb to let it grow up like that. And granted, the river comes out every year. No doubt about it, it's coming out more and more every year. But they still had plenty of time to cut that grass, in the summer when it dried out. Like I said, you got mowers that cut 10 feet wide paths. It can't take that long to cut that grass. I cut my grass, and mine floods every year. I got other neighbors that cut their grass and floods every year. They keep their lawns nice. Why can't the park do it? That's what and I do believe that this park department is trying to ruin Riverside Park. Because every time you do something down there, I think you're ruining it more and more compared to what it used to be. You've took out all the a bathroom I can see taking that out in the swimming pool. You tore out all the picnic benches, you tore down the ball field. And there are a lot of other things they tore down there that wasn't hurting a thing that people used to use. They had concrete picnic tables down there. They tore them out because they didn't want to cut grass around them. There was trees growing down there right where this weed patch is. There used to be big trees down there. They cut them all down. Now they say they don't want to have trees down there. Well, trees are good for the environment. Why are they cutting them down? To me, it's just dumb. And I hope you guys consider cutting that grass again because it looked a lot nicer when it was cut than it does a big weed patch now. I don't know what else I can say. And when he brings up this other thing with the trails or something through the park, I wanna talk about that too. I don't know if I can talk about that now or not.
Would now or later, Director Schmitz, be a more appropriate time? I'm not sure on the schedule, or agenda.
Can you bring that up without it being on the agenda? Talk about the trail?
Well, I think we can certainly allow public input, but I would recommend we focus on this action.
Okay, that's
This
fine.
action form now.
Okay, and then, okay, so we'll focus on that now, and then you think, Director Schmitz, Mr. Hasse would like to talk about would that be appropriate for him to express some more viewpoints on that then later, do you think, or Mr. Christian, or
Vice
or
Chair
what do you think?
Slitterall.
I'm not sure the points of order here on that, what should apply.
I think we can discuss that in the report section of the agenda.
Okay.
We get into staff reports and
Okay.
commissioner reports, there'll be time.
Okay, so
Okay.
we'll designate that time. Thank you, Mr. Hasse. Okay, so we've had the several points brought out here. Director Schmitz, we've heard Mr. Hasse. Is there some discussion, Director Schmitz?
Vice Chair Slitterall and Commissioners, one more thing I'd like to point out in your packet, of course, there's the aerial photograph of the area we've depicted. And then there are 6 or is it 8 photographs. And then finally, we have a letter from resident citizen Dennis Bourne. So I want to make sure that's part of the record.
Right.
That resident Dennis Bourne is opposed to the present mowing pattern and would like to see Lower Riverside Park mowed, as Michael Hasse just mentioned. So I just want to make sure that's in the record.
Yeah, good point. Okay, we'll open it for discussion. Yes.
I guess my first thought was, when I mentioned it a few minutes ago, the buffer law, Dayton's buffer law, that talks about 50 feet along a river has to be perennial vegetation. So, I mean, it doesn't indicate whether it has to be mowed or not, but it has to be a perennial vegetation. I guess, and there has to be some kind of weed control. I guess I wouldn't want to see it be a total weed patch either. I mean, I know with county ditch systems, we have to do a mix that is appropriate, and then we have to maintain that so that it doesn't spread to the rest of farmland in the case of a drainage ditch. Here with grass, you wouldn't want that to be full of weeds either. But I guess whether it gets I think it should get, it doesn't have to be mowed along there. I don't think with the, like you say, the debris and stuff, that's just gotta be a lot of extra work. So,
Okay, thank you for your thoughts.
I guess I also think that it doesn't need to be mowed. I like the way that it's been getting mowed because the river's shifting. It's like the pattern is it's moving more into the park. That's just the natural flow of what's happening. So I don't know.
I'd have to tend to agree with Gene. We all need to have the buffer zone everywhere as it has to be. And as long as the weeds are controlled, I mean, obnoxious weeds, if there is an obnoxious weed anymore. I mean, the grass part, maybe it gets to, I don't know, but I mean, I would think there would be nothing wrong with that. I mean, I know we gotta leave a buffer zone, so, on every drainage ditch, so.
And the one comment I do want to make on that with the grass cutting and whatnot, the soil in Brown County Soil Water Conservation District, most of the residents down there, including myself, we got a letter about that, with the buffer law. And when I called up there, as long as you cut your grass right down, it's still considered a buffer. I mean, they just don't want to see black dirt of the erosion. That should help answer that question. I do want to bring up, Tom and myself, we also sit on this Vision 2020, not board, but a group trying to revitalize Riverside Park. There was a lot of lengthy discussion that evening on this topic. from different parties, and I'm gonna say argumentative, what should we do, what should we not do? One of the ideas was doing a compromise. Granted, there's a lot of environmental classes that go on down at Riverside Park. Was there a bartering system? They kind of bartered back and forth, and yet at the end outcome, it still needs to come to this board. You know, it finally came out that you people are not the deciding body for this, what we're gonna do in the Riverside Park. But I did want to bring that up. There was some, Mr. Bourne was at the meeting. There was kind of like negotiating, well, how about just a small patch for the environmental and then cut the rest?
Are there any further thoughts?
Can I say something here yet on this?
Sure, please come to the podium if you would.
Did I say my name and everything again? Mike Hossie, I live at 1229 South Front.
Thank you.
I'm glad you brought that up about the buffer zone. That buffer zone serves no purpose, like he said, the grass is the buffer zone. So you can't use that buffer zone as an excuse to let that grass grow. Because there's no sediment whatsoever going in that river because of the grass. There's nothing that runs into that park that runs into the river. So that, using that as an excuse doesn't work. Because there is no excuse for that grass to grow down there. If you're gonna say, well, it's a buffer zone, Mark Dayton said this, that don't pertain to down in that area. Like you said, the grass does all that. You don't have to let weeds grow up 5 feet high.
And I do think we understand that it can be mowed as
Right.
far as the buffer zone is concerned.
Yes.
Yeah, we do understand that. Thank you. Well, everybody has expressed an opinion, and the 3 points that I especially like that have been put before us is that the conceptual plan for Riverside and Minnesota Parkway includes natural areas of unmowed vegetation in the area. And wildlife, nature, observation, and environment education opportunities are increased with reduced mowing, and so I do appreciate those points. Is there further discussion? Yes, we have another gentleman who would like to speak, so please come to the podium, and if you'd give your name and address, please.
Take me a second to get up there. I'm
Sure.
not real quick on my feet here. My name is Ron Baldwin. I was reluctant to speak because I'm not a goose towner, other than an honorary goose towner. I'm the curator of the Riverside History and Nature Learning Center, and all I want to say is that I was the one arguing against Denny Bourne, and I did actually agree with some of his points when it was all over and finished. And I was the one that proposed probably it would be best to have some sort of a compromise. And I have sympathy for folks like Mike. I've known Mike forever, and I don't want to tell them that they have to accept the fact that there's a nice nature area there. But I do a lot of programming down there. I work with 2 area naturalists, Scott Kudelka from DNR and John Nisley from Brown County, and we do programming there. If this is left, I just want you to know I'm not going to actually argue in favor or against it, but it is incorporated into plans for our programming. We have digital nature photography classes. We would move down into that area to give the kids an idea of how you can use a nature area. And it isn't going to be just a wasted land. And I will concede we can do other things with it, and we could live with a smaller area, but I do want to make sure everyone understands that it is being used. It's not there just for a buffer or anything else. We certainly would be happy to use it. And also, we can get along without it, so I know I'm being really, really wishy-washy here, but I really do have sympathy for people like Mike that think it's an eyesore. I personally don't, but, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and being a nature photographer myself, I probably look at it differently than other people do. And I think it's kind of significant that there really hasn't been too much opposition to it, but there's definitely opposition. And some of the people that were opposed after I talked to them a little bit, they actually have come around. So that's just my 2 cents. Is I do want you to know whichever way it goes, we will use the area. It's I think that's a real treasure for us, Riverside Park, to have something right on the river that large, and whichever way you go, I'm happy with it.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin, for speaking out, and
Actually, I got a question for both parties that spoke. You know, we're looking at the south end of the park, which that's the one that remains so wet almost year-round. And Mike, I know you know what I'm talking about. What if that little piece is left? Because I've watched, normally they can't get in there with the mower until it's 4 weeks of drought, and the rest of it get cut. I'm talking the one area where they buried a mower in. It is hard to mean, I don't,
Water comes in first,
where it comes in first.
you know, like Ron was saying.
excuse me, should
You
we,
gotta come
we
to the
should,
mic.
Mr. Hassey,
Yeah.
we should ask you to come to the, because others aren't able to hear this if they're at home.
I agree with Ron, for nature and stuff like that, but you got the whole Minicon Park. There you got a lot better nature, you got a slough, you got the river right there, you got a nice old road that goes right through there, you can walk through. And there's all kinds of nature over there, and if you want nature, get a canoe and go across the river. The city owns all the property across the river, they own hundreds of acres across the river. That's one of my points why you have to let Riverside, and agree it goes underwater and it's hard to mow. But like I said, when you get in there, you only gotta mow it, you don't have to mow it every week. You know, if you mow it every 3 weeks, what's the difference? At least the grass is cut down, you're not having weeds in the mosquito patch and stuff. I agree what he said for photographing butterflies or whatever, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But like I said, you got the whole Minicon Park, you can make a trail walk and go over there, and it's probably a lot better scenery, you'll see more over there, you'll see deer and maybe some ducks if they're around by accident. There's a lot better stuff over in Minicon Park to photograph than there is right in Riverside Park. There used, like I said, there used to be ball fields and everything down there, and that's all gone now. I guess that's all I can say. I'm totally against it, and you're not gonna change my mind, so I guess that's one of my points.
Thank you again, and I do appreciate your passion, no matter how this goes. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sledadal and Commissioners. One more input that I've received from a resident is from Scott Sparlin, the Executive Director of the Coalition for Clean Minnesota River, that presently holds the lease to the building in Riverside Park. And he has given me verbal and an email stating his opposition to mowing the entire area, and that he supports the present mowing pattern that we have down there now. So that was another input, feedback we've received from a resident citizen.
Okay. It seems like we've received all of the feedback that we would be aware of. Are we ready to move on this matter?
So if I understand, right now you're not mowing. This is something that was approved a while back.
Yep.
And so I guess I would make the motion to leave the mowing pattern as it's been in the past. Not mowing the entire edge for safety reasons, for environmental reasons, and multitude of others.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second to elect for number C, not alter the present mowing pattern. Is there any discussion?
So I'm correct in that you want to keep it as is? Don't alter it at all or cut more, leave the south end open?
Right.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll call the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Those opposed, no.
No?
The motion carries. We'll move on then to the next item. Item number 8, the 2018 preliminary budget. Director Schmitz?
Thank you, Vice Chair Sledadal and Commissioners. You have before you the present preliminary budget that the City Council has approved. And I'll just highlight a few things. First of all, I want to reemphasize the fact that the department continues to focus on repairs and maintenance of existing facilities and programs, and that the Park and Recreation Fund is a special revenue fund in which all unspent money stays in that particular fund. We're not part of the city's general fund. So we normally spend approximately $500,000 on capital repair and replacement projects, and you see the list of items that are presently in the preliminary budget, subtotaling $682,300. You also see a second list in the action form of a few items that the department proposed, the department requested, but were removed by city administration, the finance director, and the city council, including our first splash pad, the $205,000 in the department request for a splash pad, probably to be located in the upper hilltop area. And then $200,000 for replacing the lighting in Field 1 of Harmon Park. And the third item is $50,000 that we propose to replace the controller in the glockenspiel from the present analog to a future digital controller. So that's $455,000 that was removed from the department request. The only other item I want to point out here is that because of the Milford Heights housing development activity, there's going to be some expense at Fender Park, and that'll also be covered in our next action item. But you see that in the budget action form where there's approximately $75,000 in park and rec funds and a similar amount of $75,000 approximately to come out of the parkland dedication account for these developments at Fender Park, which are roadway and boulevard right-of-way developments. So that's all I have to mention now. You have all the preliminary budget for the Park and Recreation Department in the packet here. And then I'll just mention that the budget is finally adopted in December by the City Council. But between now and then, changes can be made. My understanding is that the City Council will be calling a work session to iron out some details in the preliminary budget so that they're confident to adopt it at their meeting in December. So that's all I have to mention. No action necessary at this meeting, but I wanted to present this information.
Thank you, Director Schmitz. Are there any questions for Director Schmitz? Seeing none, we will proceed to the new business, and that would be the item 9, Fender Park Road Infrastructure.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sledadol and Commissioners. As I just mentioned, Milford Heights Housing Development is seeing some action and activity with more housing units being built up in Milford Heights, which is kind of on the west side of town, just north of 5th North Street and New County 27. Fender Park is an undeveloped park up there. And because of the developments of the housing, there's going to be road improvements. And that's going to cost the city about $150,000, at least the Park and Recreation Department, to have Fender Drive completed, which is storm sewer, pavement, curb and gutter, sidewalk, and boulevard trees. So my understanding is that City Council is planning to move forward with this authorization, and I recommend that you support it also.
Okay, are there any discussion to this item number 9 regarding the Fender Park Street and Boulevard development.
How many acres is that park? It looks pretty big.
Fender Park is approximately 5 acres.
Really? I mean, it does look quite large. And then a plan for development of that park would be down the road, I would assume.
Yes, we do not have a development plan for the park itself yet.
It's just to get the road and
Yes,
the infrastructure in. Sure.
yes.
I don't really think we have a choice.
Not really.
So I'll make a motion that we put that in our budget.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend city council authorize funding Fender Park Street and Boulevard development. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion's carried. And then the other new business item would be the donations. Director Schmitz?
Thank you, Vice Chair Sledadal and Commissioners. You have before you a request to send to the City Council for their acceptance of donations that have been offered to the city over the past month. I'll read those into the record. For the Herman 5K and Tot Trot that's coming up this Saturday morning, $150 cash from Happy Joe's. 3 sets of donations for the dog park, all in cash. $100 from New Ulm Real Estate, $25 from Broadway Chiropractic, $25 from Fisher Law Firm, $654 from the Happy Tails Dog Park Group. Those funds will be going towards paying for the water service that's going to be installed at the dog park, hopefully before freeze up. Next item is German Park, $100 from New Ulm High School class of 1967, which will go towards a paver stone and other improvements at German Park. Finally, for the Days of Play, $500 cash from Paul's Electric Incorporated. So I recommend that you forward those on to the City Council for their formal acceptance. And the total value of these cash donations is $1,554. And there is a list of people to thank that I would anticipate the mayor sending thank you letters to.
Do we have a motion to move on this?
I make a motion to move on this.
Second.
Motion and second to recommend to the council that we accept these cash donations. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion's carried. With that, then, Director Schmitz, would you give report and updates?
Certainly, thank you, Vice Chair Sledadal and Commissioners. You have before you in the packet here a list of projects that have been completed, a list of projects that are in progress, and purchase orders have been issued. And then the third group are projects that are still in the planning phase. I'll just highlight a few of these. The South Park Disc Golf Course renovations are complete. A number of projects in the Recreation Center have been completed. And North Park, as you see in the packet here. Let's see here, we previously mentioned our second Zamboni replacement. So that will be put into service. We're freezing the north rink as we speak. So there's no longer dry floor venue opportunities at the Civic Center, and the north arena will be frozen soon, so we'll have 2 sheets of ice. We'll fire up the new electric Zamboni and be combustion free at the Civic Center. Miller Park has seen some improvements and has other improvements scheduled in anticipation of the double state tournament in 2020 at both Johnson Park and Miller Park. The buckthorn brigade continues to eradicate buckthorn, especially in South Market Park. We anticipate the 4 more Glockenspiel figurines to come in and be installed prior to Thanksgiving. Putting green is a pertinent topic. We're still consummating the lease between the city and Putting Green, ironing out the lease agreement for them to operate the community garden. And the mini golf course site has been raised and removed. So I don't think, other than that, we certainly can talk about the potential proposed trail segment. The commission and the city council have authorized negotiations and discussions between the city and Farmers Co-op of Hanska and Clausen Plumbing to talk about the possibility of establishing a trail along the Minnesota River connecting Riverside Park with Minnicon Park. So I know we have a resident here who would like to speak on that, and I think we should allow him to do so. And if the commission has any questions, I'll try to answer those.
Mr. Hazy, would you please share your opinions on that matter?
Well, I'd just like to ask every one of you, have you ever been down there and seen where this trail is supposedly supposed to go? Have you all been down there in the last day or so?
No.
Go down there, it's 3 feet under, 4 feet underwater right now, and it's probably gonna get a little deeper because the river's not supposed to crest tomorrow or the next day, something like that. It's completely underwater. So why would anybody even think of putting a trail down there when you know it's gonna go underwater? It's guaranteed. And it's a hazard. If little kids, the river's, when the river goes down, the river's only a foot away from the trail. Some little kid could fall in and drown just like that if they're down there by themselves. Because there's current, right there, there's a lot of current on that stretch of river. I know because I've traveled it many a time, probably more than most people have in my years. It does not make any sense to put a trail down there that's going to be hazard to little kids, and it's just a taxpayer's nightmare because the river's going to tear it out. When the river comes out in the spring with ice is going to tear that trail out. Is that going to be blacktop? Do you know if that's going to be a blacktop trail or?
The proposal is blacktop, yes. And a couple of items I'd like to mention, Mr. Hasse, about that is that segment of proposed trail is parallel to the current of the river. It's not perpendicular.
Yep.
Another element is that look at Minnicon Park water access site. That goes underwater numerous times, and the ramp and the pavement have not degraded.
That's not in the current. The park, Riverside, the boat landing is not directly in the current. This trail, when the river comes around the corner, the river's gonna push right into it. So the river's gonna be pushing right into that trail. When it goes down the long stretch or the long way, it'll be right on the edge of the trail. But when it comes around that corner, it's gonna push right into that trail.
And that bank has not moved over the
That
past.
bank in the last 50 years, I know it has because I've been down there. It's gradually going down, and when them trees fall down, that's gonna be it. It's gonna be the end of it. And that bank has moved over the years. You can't tell me it hasn't because I've been watching it for many years. I know it has. And I've been in contact with the DNR, and I gotta talk to some more people about it. Why do you even allow a blacktop in the floodplain? And I'm gonna try to get their answers, because I'll be up here the next time this comes up.
The DNR has been involved in the previous discussions and the design.
I haven't talked to them yet, though.
Yes.
Right.
And the engineers that have designed the trail are confident that it will be maintainable.
You got engineers that are 30 years old that have no idea what the river can do. It basically is my opinion. Just like I said it with river, when you put in the boat landing, I said that's gonna cost money every year to maintain it, and it does. How many times have you been down there cleaning out the boat ramp?
We clean the ramp off from sediment
M&R
when
paving,
when the river recedes.
M&R paving was down there, they took 7 truckloads of mud out of there.
And the boat enthusiasts greatly appreciate
The
that.
boat landing's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying, it costing the taxpayers money every year to maintain it. The parking lot's fine, but we'll get back on a trail, get away from that project, that's over and done with. But that trail, I do not believe it's gonna go in Riverside Park, and that's underwater right now. Behind the mill, there's probably 3 feet to 4 feet of water behind there right now. And the road going into Minicon is underwater right now. That road that goes in, the old road that goes in there, that's underwater right now. Not by much, but it's getting higher. It does not make any sense to put a trail down there that's gonna cost the taxpayers money. Every time you gotta go down there and clean it, it's gonna get a scum of mud on it. You're gonna have to either go down there with the street sweeper or something and clean it. Because it's just gonna cost money every time you do it. You got a trail right going down Front Street right now with bicycles on it right now. That's one. You got a trail half a block away from it right now. You don't need 3 trails within a block area for bicycles to go down. Besides, you're gonna be going down a hill. And if there's frost on there, some little kid's gonna go down there, wipe out. Then what's the city gonna do? Say, well, we're sorry? I'll tell you right now, in front of everybody, if there's ever an accident down here, I'll be the first one standing at this podium pointing fingers and say, you guys did it. You're at fault. And I hope it never happens, but if it ever does, I'll be the first one up here. I think the trail is completely dumb. It's a waste of taxpayers' money, grant money or whatever you get, taxpayers still gotta put money into it. And it's just gonna cost more money every year to clean it. And the way the river's coming out, you'd have to clean it 3 times this year. You would have to do it 3 times. Plus in the wintertime, you can't even use it. The snowmobiles will be running on it. Because they run through Riverside Park right now and the police don't do nothing about it. That's all that's gonna be is a snowmobile trail. It's gonna get packed harder than a rock down there. And I don't know if the city's gonna clean it or not for keep trails open or not. That's my opinion on that bike trail. It's just a total waste of money, a taxpayer's money. And it's an accident waiting to happen.
Well, I would just say that I was an avid canoeist for many years, and I have a very healthy respect for river currents. And so I do appreciate the points that you have raised. Thank you. I believe that finishes then the activity report questions. And then, are there any commissioner reports that anybody has?
Well, I'd like to make a comment, and thanks to Park and Rec for making room for some of us pickleballers for additional time. I think that was great. It's much appreciated. It's something that, you know, hopefully builds up with time, but many of us are having fun with it, and I think it's just a great opportunity. So thank you.
And I had a chance today somebody approached me who isn't able to play pickleball because of the time restriction that we've had, and she was very enthused about those additional times.
Thank you very much. Yes, we've expanded the pickleball times weekly in the field house, Vogel Field House of the Recreation Center. I'd also like to point out the fact that changing the tennis courts to pickleball courts has begun in Lincoln Park. So I don't know if we'll get it done before the snow flies or not, but certainly by next season, the 2018 spring and summer pickleball season, outdoor pickleball will be available, 6 courts at Lincoln Park. It's a very popular and the #1 fastest growing activity in the U.S.
All right, so unless there might be any more commissioner reports, and seeing none, the next meeting will be held November 13 at 4 p.m. and construction permitting will be going back to the city council chambers. With that, the meeting is adjourned.